As we begin today, I want to acknowledge that I am located in Lloydminster on the border of Alberta and Saskatchewan in the heart of Treaty 6 territory. Before the arrival of the explorers and settlers, many First Nations traveled through and thrived in this area, which also includes the homeland of the Métis. I was born here, but I chose to return here as an adult. And now, after unlearning what I was taught in public school in the 1970s and 1980s, and relearning a less whitewashed history of this place, I see this land and its stories through very different eyes. I acknowledge that the roots of my family on the prairies came at the cost of the First Nations people who were here long before. Their land was taken so that my ancestors could farm and build their lives in this place that became known as Canada. I cannot change the past, but I can try to move forward in a good way by sharing what I've learned about the Indigenous peoples whose teachings are so intricately tied to this land and all it encompasses. It has been an honor for me to be able to record these stories, many of which I've heard over the years, and some that are new. We have so many hours of footage that will become part of the family's archives, or as Wes sometimes says, the historical field notes. In this final installment of Âsokan, Building Bridges, we begin in media res because the words never stop flowing. There were so many gems to treasure that we created an extended bonus episode. We revisit topics that have come up throughout this series: spirits, animals, dreams, the little people. These are stories that we hope will, as Wes says, awaken the dreams of young children. Enjoy. Moi estas. Mr. Fine is sharing stories as he knows and has experienced them, which may differ from those told within other Indigenous communities and settler institutions. Throughout the series, we discuss various plants and traditional healing methods. This is not intended to replace medical advice from trained healthcare providers. Some episodes contain graphic descriptions of events witnessed and experienced by the guest at his time in residential school and at various points throughout his life. They may spark memories and questions, so we are asked to listen with open hearts and minds. Viewer discretion is advised.
So that's the thing about a lot of your experiences. How do I turn this into a story, and a story that will make people laugh or piss them off or what, take them out of that numbness, and that the walls they built up. Because the walls they have built up keep only them isolated. And we've had a long history of that kind of isolation, There were stories, and from what I can understand, when I think about the times that are being talked about, and how there was a camp of people living at the base of at the foothills of a range of mountains. And always, to me, that signifies some of the earliest times of human experience, and how there was 10 medicine men there, very powerful, who could travel, who could do magical things. They were sorcerers at the highest level. And people were always coming to them. Guidance, healing. And it became kind of like a cult, and they decided to form into an organization. And there was one man there, he wasn't too interested in that. Creator gave me these gifts and I share them with the people when they come. That's my focus. And so they had him seized, taken away, and they put him in a cave. And they blocked the entrance with stones. But they left the opening there enough to, people to come and talk to him or to bring him food, water, stuff like that. But he spent quite a bit of time in there before he died. But he used to stand on the other side of that opening, and he would talk to the people. He would tell them stories. He would teach them songs, sing his power songs, and tell them sacred stories, and tell them about, different dimensions. But when he was inside, he could, the opening was kind of a little high, and but he used to get food and water in there, but he couldn't see who was out there. But people used to come and sit around outside, stand around outside and listen to him. And he wondered from time to time. I tell these stories and I sing these songs, and I wonder if anyone hears. I wonder if anyone is listening. But I'll continue anyway. And when he was getting weak and almost on the point of dying, he was about to die. And he stood out there one last time and he spoke, and he said to the people that he was not going to be around much longer, but that he hoped that what he had shared with them would continue to be passed on through the ages, so that the young people would have knowledge of the sacred, of the spirits, of the protocols and process, and how to approach, all of these things that he was trying to leave behind. And then he said, Kihtuam go up tinao. I will see you again, Kitahtawe, at some time. And he sat down. And one of the people who had spent the years outside listening to him was his son. When he had been taken, his family had been left behind. But they had come. They were the ones who were bringing food and drink and the things that he might need in there to keep him comfortable. But after he said, I'm about to embark on my last journey, but someday I will see you all again. And he was standing there. He had just finished saying that, and then he heard something. And it was his power song. He stood and he listened. And then he realized it was his son who was singing that. And he knew that his teachings would not be lost. But that was the time when they began to form spirituality into religious organizations, into cults and gangs and things like that, because these people wanted to control the masses, the ones who had the power. They wanted to be able to dictate to these other ones who needed their power. And he did not want his gifts to be politicized. And it was between me and Creator and me and Creator's children, And when he heard his power song being sung, and at the end he sat down and he looked and he said, now I know. In the future, they'll hear my stories. They will listen to my songs. And they will listen to the things that I have passed down, because my children have been listening, and they will be the ones that will carry it into the future. When I think about that, and I think about that timeline and the number 6,000, winters comes to me. In the beginning, because there have been many beginnings. We have been, you could say it's like this period of evolution that we have entered and we are undergoing, and we are going to be affected by and impacted greatly by this moment in time. But, we did not arrive here empty-handed. We came here bringing what we would need to help us walk into the future on our own, with the skills that we would need to help us to survive in a new land. And that new land would be, you could say, have all of the things that you needed to survive. But you had to learn skills. And always human survival has been incredibly challenging. There is no such thing as a free ride, in terms of the journey of men, the journey of humans. Everyone has had to, when they were born without skills, but they were born with a mind. They were born with a body and with emotions and with a spirit. And all of these are to be used to help us to become who it is that we are meant to become. And so, in the dreaming, and we have dreamers, there are still dreamers. And sometimes if I have a dream, for instance, about a friend of mine, and I know that they are thoughtful and serious and, may benefit by having what I have seen shared with them, I will share it with them. But if they think it's just a joke or, you're probably having nightmares, and then I don't take it any further, because they're not ready, or they cannot hear, or they are terrified of knowing. And in our lodges, like the ceremonies you come to, we sing the spirits in. They talk to us about the future. They talk to us about the past, and they talk to us about the moment that we are in. And they can describe your condition and point directions, but they will not walk your journey for you. That's your job. We can help you. We can leave signs along the way, And when, for instance, your body no longer able to function and your soul has to get ready to leave. Well, that's one of the things we talked about, the journey of the soul, last night when Walter came over. How when your soul is ready to leave, and the changes that have happened. Your soul has left your body, and so we get ready to take your body out and put it in the land, or in the old days it was put up on a scaffold in the bushes, Âsokan, where you are pulled up, Âsokan. And that, they would leave a body wrapped in buffalo hides up on the scaffold, or it could be buried. In later times when the priests came, they did that. And after that, once your body is lying there and people have come together to tell stories, to laugh, to cry, to remember who you were and what you had done in your life, and and there would be laughter and celebration and of your life. And that would go on for 3 nights. And then on the 4th day, That's when your body leaves to go to the spiritual dimension. To the place, there's a special place that has been created for human souls, where they are taken. And that place, they say, is full of all of the humans that have ever lived through time are all there. And so that dimension is full of our relations we never ever knew, but who have spent our lifetimes watching us, supporting us, singing for us, praying for us, to be blessed with what it is we need to become who we were meant to become. And so on the fourth day, they would go and take your body to where it's going to be buried or put up in a scaffold. They would do that in the daytime. And then they would come back to the camp at night, and they would have a big feast. And that is your funerary feast. And for instance, because it's a feast, it's a meal with the spirit of the one that is leaving. But it's officiated and presided over by spiritual entities, you see. And one of the patrons of feasting is Pagahos. Pagahos is a skeleton spirit. White people start remembering him at this time of year, the Day of the Dead and all of that. But for many people, Pagahos is the patron of certain kinds of feasts and funerary feasts. Well, because it's bones. He's a skeleton, you see. And what do bones require? They require grease, you see. And so we would take buffalo tallow. And even, they also like that caul fat, you could say. There's a lining, a membrane that separates your lungs from the rest of your organs. It's a very thin membrane. You can see through it. That's a delicacy for Pagahos. So when the hunters are going out, I will ask them, get me some of that caul fat. That's what white people call it. But that's the membrane that separates the organs and the lungs and heart and stuff. And, for that I would cut it and wrap it in a cloth. Make it some eyes and a smiling mouth. Put some tobacco under and put it on top of the tobacco. And then take it out and hang it in a tree. And invite Pagahos. Atstam. Bemitso. Come and eat. And you feed Pagahos, and he will sprinkle blessings upon you. And the blessings that he's endowed to sprinkle upon you have to do with your livelihood, your profession, your vocation, the things that will help you have or develop the skills you need to become a contributing member of the community that you are part of. And then, at the beginning, that's the offering for Pagahos, but then there's also a bowl of that grease, buffalo fat, buffalo tallow. And it's kind of like lard or butter, but it's not as heavy. It's very light, and it's wonderful to cook with, Yeah, but they'll have a bowl of that, and that's the first one to go around. When they're passing around food, it's always at they might give you, they might dish out all the food from the feast for you. But then before you can eat, you have to wait for that bowl of grease to be passed around. And when it's passed around, take some, put it on your bannock and And that's the first thing you eat. But it's only after the pipe ceremony and the pipe has been lowered and set down, after the food has been prayed for, then the ceremonialist can say, Mitsuk, now eat, you know. And the first thing you would have would be that grease for pagakos. You're eating for pagakos. So you're also eating for your own skeleton, because your own skeleton needs that grease. And then the other things. And Walter was saying, because he has worked as a helper all his life with Scapewes, he's saying, and I always remember, he said, to make that spirit plate. Take a little bit of everything that's been brought, as long as it doesn't contain pork, because that's taboo. You cannot have pork as a feast food. But anything else. And when that's passed around and people are eating, we're told, if you're finished, if you can't eat anymore, just leave your containers open. Don't close them and start getting ready to pack up and go home. Leave them open. You might be finished, but are the spirits finished? So you have to leave them open for the spirits. Let them finish that meal, you see. And then when the pipe is taken apart, that's when the feast is over. That's when you can cover your food. That's when you can pack it up, and that's when you can begin to take it home. We call that wihkuhtuwin. Very similar to wahkuhtuwin. But wihkuhtuwin is to eat together. Wahkuhtuwin is to be related to each other. Wihkuhtuwin is to feast together. Yeah. But not just you and I, but all the spirits that we are descended from can be invited. And there are people now doing what they call memorial feasts, which is kind of a new thing. But the spirits say that is not a necessary thing. That's something that's new, that's, But they say you have one feast on the fourth day, and that's it, and if you can have one a year later, but that's the last one, and if you continue to try to have funerary feasts, well, people will start dying, you see, because that's what you're asking for. Yeah. Doing things when they're not necessary. Yeah. Or circumventing. And so what he was just talking about one of his relatives who died, and they wanted to have a memorial feast, and they asked him to come over and do that feast, and he said, well, I don't have that right, really. But I'll tell you something, he said, those spirits say it's not necessary to continue feasting, and that if you continue having funerary feasts and, no one has died, well, people will begin to die, and the ones who are sponsoring those feasts are sacrificing the ones that are being taken before their time. So you have to be very careful with these old ceremonies, because they have old laws and protocols, and it's not something that we can just make up as we go along. And that seems to have happened in some of the situations that we're now encountering. Really strange things, and for instance, a guy died a couple of weeks ago on the reserve. There was no wake for him. There was no funeral. From the hospital, they took his body to the funeral home and they cremated him. But no service, nothing. And, which was strange to me, because his parents had been, I don't know if they were strict Catholics. Either they were strict Catholics or they were afraid of the priest, but they used to go to church,
Well, I know I had always thought that I would get cremated because I didn't have any faith or belief. And I thought, well, it's just my body. What good is it? What does it do? And I mean, since I've met you and I have a different understanding of spirit and faith and my body and my soul. And so I have changed how I feel about that. But I know that you've told me about even how when the bodies were left up on the scaffolds, people would go back and collect the bones.
After everything else had gone, and all that would be left with the bones, eh? And 4 or 5 years, they would go, the relatives would go back, some of them. Well, they would go back and they would collect the bones. And then if that person used to enjoy, sitting on Sliding Hill or some other place that they enjoyed being, that's where their bones would be taken and they would be placed there and then covered with stones so the animals couldn't bother them, eh? But they would be left on the ground and then covered with stone so that they wouldn't be bothered by the animals, because every part of you, your bones, your organs, your brain, every part of you is imbued with the residue of Creator's power and dreams and essence. When we say when you are born into this world, your destiny is to become the goddess that Creator meant you to become. But you require help, you require teachings, you require support, you require guidance. You require protection and safety. And there are ways you can protect your soul. And there are things you can do to protect yourself emotionally and physically and intellectually. Often I will tell you stories that go beyond what would be considered extreme, because I want you to develop the self-discipline that is required, that no matter what I say, it can't shock you. You see, it won't surprise you, because the shock and the surprise are what pulls your soul out of your body. And if the shock and surprise are extreme, they will pull your soul right out of your body. And then, there will have to be something done to bring your body back into, or your soul back into your body. And that can be through, but it always has to be through ceremony. That happened to me when I met my first teacher. And that old man, there were people who knew him, who were terrified of him. And in his presence, he would always be looking down. And I often wondered why, because he was such a kind old man to me. He used to tell me stories and take me hunting and take me picking medicines. And in my third year, I learned he was a thirsting dance chief. He was one of the people who always sat at the head of the thirsting dances. Someone else might sponsor it, but they would have to have him and 3 other men there. And to me, okay, he's going to be busy. I had no idea what that was about, what ceremony was about. But, he used to send me on missions. On missions to collect feathers. And always it was a special feather he wanted. I couldn't just bring him any feather. I could, If I found a feather on the road, well, that wasn't the one he wanted, you know. He wanted me to connect with wing guns. The ones that are related to the Piesiwak, the thunders. To connect with them and have them gift me with what he was asking me to get for him. Because there was that connection. And at first I had no idea, you know, like, okay, why does he want a feather? And why does it have to be the fourth feather from the right-hand side of that bird, from the right wing? Well, if I find a bird, I'll just pull a feather off and take it to him, you know. But those spirits would say, that's not it. You know, you got the wrong one. And it's like this guy. He was asked to make some buffalo hide rattles. And he brought a couple of rattles to the lodge. And, you know, they were used for spirit calling. And he went in there in the ceremony with these folks. And, you know, after they were finished, those spirits came in when they sang. And they used those rattles. And after they had, you know, listened to the requests of people and granted the requests, that buffalo spirit came in. And he said to that guy, were you not asked to make some buffalo rattles, buffalo hide rattles? And he said, yes. I bought 2 rattles. And that buffalo spirit said, those are not buffalo hide. You know, that was not what you were asked for. You still owe. So you got to make those. Yeah.
He thought he could fool the spirits.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can fool people, but spirits, you can't fool them. There are no shortcuts, you see. Yeah. And, you know, going on journeys, and today you know, for instance, I find it, I mean, I'm quite aware when there are birds or feathers or horns. Another thing that comes to me is the antlers, deer. I was coming back from Regina one day, and I was with this lawyer, Métis woman. And, you know, she was talking about some case that she was working on and had no idea about how she was going to be able to help her clients who were an Indian band. And while she was talking, I just had this sense I got to pull over and stop. So I pulled over and stopped. And she looked at me. She said, why are we stopping? I said, just wait. And I got out and I walked across a ditch and into a field, and there was a set of antlers there. So I picked them up, put my tobacco down, came carrying those back. Where did you find those? Oh, out there. Well, how did you know that they were there? Well, that's why I stopped. I said, and now I felt them. Well, what are you supposed to do with them? I said, well, actually, they're for you. You know, you're wondering about how you should approach this case and work on it. Well, this is from a deer. Think about that. Deer are very gentle, you see, but they persevere. And, you know, the changes may be small, but they will happen, you know. And so take this home with you and smudge it and keep it somewhere in your house near the door, because it was you they were calling out. They just let me know, you know, that they wanted to gift you with these things. She just looked at me and then she started to cry. And she said, thank you. Thank you so much, she said. You just, never know what you just did for me there, And I told her, well, I don't need to, but the spirits know, and for me, I'm doing their bidding, You needed to make that physical connection because that will remind you of the spiritual principles that are the foundations of spiritual law. That's what they're telling you. Go to the spiritual law to find answers for your legal issues here. And that then she began to talk about inherent rights, that are not written in the white man's system, but that have always been gifted to humans. And it just elevated, the degree, I guess you could say, of her thought processes, where all of a sudden they were expanded. It's okay. This is not just a little problem, and there are many entities that are sitting and willing to help if you just ask.
But then it's also paying attention to what's going on around us. Like we were talking the other day about how we look, but we don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Or we feel something, or we think something, or we think of someone, but we don't act on it.
Yeah. And there, we have kind of distanced ourselves from a lot of our most incredible gifts that we have, in terms of being able to communicate. And that's why I say, one of the principles is integrity. Allow yourself to feel what you feel and know that this is important for you. Allow yourself to think what you think. And what does that do to your mind? Does it cause apprehension? Or is it relaxing and comforting, and whatever situation you're in, your spirit is scanning, your emotions are scanning. And if you start feeling uncomfortable in a situation, just look around and see which direction that feeling is coming from, and you'll be able to pinpoint exactly who and what is sending that, you see. And then you can protect yourself, and send it back. This is not mine. Take it back. I don't need it. And then watch those people walk away, wondering what just happened. Yeah.
I remember talking to you about the birds coming to my house, and then there was a series of, it was just a spell where birds were hitting the front window, and just a series of incidences with the birds, and talking about, why are they coming? And so I've learned to, as part of my prayer, to welcome those who come in a good way, but send the ones who come with negative messages back to where they came from.
Yeah, or else ask for those negative messages to be transformed into messages of positivity and, beneficial, so that, even if they bring negative messages, okay, flip them around. I don't need negative messages. I would like positive messages, and I will thank you to change that from positive to negative, and here, have a smoke, and I'll feed you. I'll leave food for you. I'll leave berries for you, as payment, Yeah. And that you acknowledge me. And, a lot of things. It's like those birds coming and bouncing off your window. That would freak out Indians, because they always assume that those are messengers of death. Someone's going to die. And, I had one person say to me that a bird had bounced off their window, and then woodpeckers. They were pecking his house in different parts. And he had taken a 22 when he was trying to shoot them, but all he did was put holes in his house. But he said, I was trying to get rid of them and they wouldn't go away. He just kept coming back. And why is that? Can you do a ceremony so they'll stop that? And I said, well, they're trying to get your attention, and you keep giving them the wrong kind of attention. They're not there saying, come, try and shoot us, They're bringing you messages. And those messages usually, when that horse kicks the basement of my house, I know he's telling me it's time to get up, something is coming, go smudge and pray and have a smoke. And we'll deal with it, That's what those birds are doing too. They're saying, get up, say a prayer, give thanks. And explain to these ones you do not require negative messages, and that if they are bringing messages to you, ask them to transform those messages into something positive and uplifting and healing and beneficial, and then pay them for that so that they take that negativity away and leave it elsewhere. Yeah.
And that payment can be a pinch of tobacco.
Oh, absolutely.
Left outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the birds. But when you talk about little people, Âsokan, they're the stone workers, you see. They work with stones, but they are also the ones who work with metal. And if you ever want to leave a gift for the little people, that will be something that will be appreciated, and you will benefit greatly from. Find a piece of very rusty metal. Take it into the sandhills or by the river where little people are said to inhabit. Leave that there with a piece of ribbon and tobacco, and ask them to accept that as your offering. And in the old days that was done. If somebody was really sick, because they're very knowledgeable about plant medicines. Sometimes people would go and make these offerings at, where the water comes out of the ground. Springs. What is a Cree word for that? Or else in the sandhills. Or there are other places in the earth where they have doorways. There's one in the valley below my house. There's a doorway for the little people there. And Max and I always go and leave offerings. If I find, they have machines. You put in a loonie and twist that, and now a little cup will come out, just a tiny one. Sometimes a dish, Sometimes when I'm at one of those, I'll take out some little cups and I'll take them to the springs. It's called, the springs, where they come out, where they, not only them, but other spirits have that as a doorway, female spirits. But I'll take those cups and I'll stick them into the ground upside down, because for them, that's right side up, you see. And I ask them to accept these offerings that I bring in a sacred manner, and hope that they will be pleased. And one of my requests perhaps might be a mixture that will help someone with a certain ailment. and then I'll go away. Go back 4 days later. They would say, you know, in the old days, there would be little bundles of medicine wrapped up where you had left your offering. Little bundles of medicine that had been tied in hide. And you would take that home and make it, and that would be the curing medicine for whatever it is that you had asked for. Because those little people are very knowledgeable. And it's like the awaken or the frog spirit. You know, I told you yesterday when my son and I went digging medicines and we found this heart medicine, wapichepi, and how he dug and dug till his arm was in sand up to his shoulder. And he said, "It's still going, Dad." And I said, "Well, just take what it is, you know, don't try and take all of it." My grandmother used to tell us that when we are picking medicines, and the medicines that have the longest roots that go down past the first level and into the second level, or through the sand, those roots, the physical part of those roots just continue, but then there is a spiritual part of the roots that continue traveling deep into the earth, and deep in the earth there is a frog spirit. And that frog spirit sits in the earth, you know, and frogs bury themselves in dirt in the wintertime. But this one is deep and sits in the earth, and it's an ancient frog, and they say that the roots of the medicines that we pick that have incredibly long roots, they are all connected into the back of this medicine frog. I say, yeah, spiritual frog. They come out of its back, and so that frog has power. But you know, things like that, the water is full of life, the earth is full of life, the sky is full of life. We are full of life, you know. And all of creation, it's all full of life. There are beings, you know, that if we were to get a glimpse of them would cause us to go into shock because they are so strange looking. And their behavior, their power, is incredible. There is one that even the medicine men fear to talk about. That's like a big hairy ball, but he can move, and he's powerful. And boy, you dare not get on his bad side, and you know you must, in its presence, show the greatest respect. If you dare to speak of him, do it very respectfully, because it's a very powerful thing. And throughout history, the ones who have disrespected the power of that one, you know, have paid dearly with their lives for that disrespect. And it's like, you know, we talk about Mistapil. White people call them Sasquatch. That's a big version. Yeah, there's little ones too. Yeah. Yeah. And even real tiny ones, but they're fully grown. And they have no respect for gravity, the laws of physics. You know, when we go inside the lodge and we sing them, and they'll be running around on the ceiling and, you know, stepping on it so loud, and they're inside. But you can hear them running around and laughing. One day that happened, and I said to Max, "Those are the little ones," I said. "Memegweswak, the little people, little humanoids." And I heard Max giggling. I didn't know if he thought it was funny or not. "What are you laughing about, son?" "Oh, there's one standing right in front of me," he said. "He's got a little stick, and he's poking my leg with it and laughing." "He's tickling me," he said. And those little ones, they like children. They love children. They care for children. So when you take children into ceremony, often they'll come there and to play and look after those children. But there's other ceremonies, there's other things that, we're told don't take your children to those, funerals, for instance, because the soul of that person who has passed on might still be in the vicinity. And if you have unprotected, unnamed entities who are children who have no protection or shields or spirit helpers, the souls of those ones can easily be convinced or, to go with this one who is going to the spirit world, and all of a sudden you have a child with no soul because his soul went with that person. And that child will get sick and eventually die, unless they're inhabited by other entities. And there are spirits. They're always around. Like I say, there are the first wave, which, they'll make you all kinds of promises and make you think that, this is easy, we can make whatever your wishes are come true. No, not a problem, And that's where you have to have that integrity, that understanding that, as the old man said to me one day, I don't recall ever telling you that this journey that you are on is going to be easy. I don't remember ever saying that to you, he said to me. When I talked about the difficulties I was having trying to do this, what he had asked me to do. To the point of endangering myself, And that's what he said to me. I don't remember telling you it was going to be easy. And just left it at that, eh? I thought, okay. So I have to learn to deal with it. Is that it,
I remember the first time you told me about the little people, and I'd never heard of that before. And again, it's one of those things like, wow, how is this possible? Like, how could I believe that? But then I started thinking, well, we have all sorts of tales about fairies, and leprechauns are very common. And, that's part of St. Patrick's Day. And so how different cultures have different stories.
And different names for the same entities. Like when Walter was talking about his dream. And he said it had wings. It was standing beside you, in front of you. It had wings. And I think it was an angel, he said. But then the word that popped into my mind was fairy. Forest dweller, you see. That's an angel of sorts, Yeah, they have wings and they fly. But they're very connected to the plants and to the earth. Yeah. Yes. So, I didn't tell Walter I was coming here, but he asked about you. And, I didn't tell him I was on my way back, but when I got to the store, he was sitting in front of the store in his vehicle. And we said hello, and I bought gas and got into my vehicle and drove home. And a few minutes later, he was pulling up. Yeah, I wanted to tell you something, he said to me. I dreamed about you. And then he began to describe his dream. And it was about, these other beings in another dimension that we are related to and that we are connected to. And these little ones, and the fairies, and they're incredibly gentle and kind and loving. And, it's, as children, they're not fearful. They don't look terrifying. There are some that, your heart goes up into your throat when you catch a glimpse of how they look. Like, ooh, okay, I better not look, But I respect you, I honor you. Yeah. And I thank you for having come to visit me. So, yeah, we are all operating on so many different dimensional levels all of the time. But a lot of times we only remember the physical, you see. And the physical can become kind of dim when we're overpowered by our emotions and our thoughts. Then your body and your soul become memories until you can learn to become accustomed to and develop a relationship that is welcoming and loving with these spirits that show themselves. The first wave, you always sit in silence and let them go. And then when you say, the first wave, as a shield, you can tell them, Mamo tawi maunta tuskawao, Mamo tawi maunita tuskawao. I work for Creator, I work for Creator. And the ones who come in the first wave who don't work for Creator all have to leave. And the second wave will come in response to that statement, and they will say, Nista ohtawi maunita tuskawao. Ohtawi maunita tuskawao. I too work for Creator. I too work for Creator. Why have you called us? What would you like? But if you accept the first wave, then, these ones will stay back. You see. Yeah.
It's kind of like don't settle. Don't say yes to the first guy who asks you out for a date. Maybe wait for a better one.
Yeah. Look beyond. It's like, and I don't know if I should tell you this, but I guess, around this area, that's where your shields are really important. Because we're attracting attention. And people want to know what we're up to. And like you said, many of them fear the things I talk about. Just because they're fearful people. And many of them think that, I should not be talking about the things that they fear. Because they are not worthy to hear them. And I should not be speaking them, because if they're not worthy to hear, then how can I be worthy to speak? See? And my answer is always, I am a child of Creator. I do Creator's bidding. And I am guided by the helpers, the workers, of Creator. They stand with me. And they will guide me and speak with me and through me at the times when I go into the deepest levels of where I have been in the beginning. You will lose sight of who I am, but you will see where I've come from. Yeah. You will see where I've been. This is so important, because this is the foundation of the worldview. This is what you should have been taught in the beginning. See, instead of starting, well, I'll build the roof first, so I have something to protect me from the rain, But what have you built it on? And for instance, we say a ski is the earth mother, the earth. A ski is the dirt that's on the earth, the dirt and the dust. That's a ski. Yego is sand. Yegowachik is the sand hills. And Yegowachik is said to be a place where these little people like to live. And when I think about that, there's some sand hills not that far from here. That people used to avoid those because, there are spirits there. And if you're a fearful person, they can be terrifying. But for instance, there was a hunter who had gone out early in the morning to collect his traps, check on his traps. And it was late afternoon by the time he decided he better start heading home before it gets dark, because we're told don't travel after, or don't spend time outside after dark. And he got to the edge of the sandhills, and he thought, if I just walk straight across, go really fast, like I can cut off quite a bit of time, or if I had to go around them, I won't get back home till nighttime. And so he had decided, okay, I'll go through the sandhills. And he had gotten a white wolf hide, a white wolf that he had killed. And he had it flung over his back. And he was walking through the sandhills trying to get home. And he said at one point where there was a bank, he was walking by that when he noticed movement at the base of that sand dune. And he looked, and he saw a little door there in the sand. And he looked, and there was a little person standing outside there. Tiny little person. Entoy maganawapi mahikan. That little being said to him, I want that white wolf. Will you give it to me? And that hunter said, I have a use for this. I'm going to fix a hide and use it. So no, I can't give it to you. Well, come inside and have a cup of tea, that little one told him. And that man said from where he was standing, he had that wolf on his back. He started walking towards that door. And by the time he reached that door, he was the same size as, he was smaller than the door he could fit in. When he reached that door, and, the little one opened that door for him and took him into our room, and there was chairs and a table and a fireplace and, a pot of tea. And so that little one poured him some tea. And they were sitting there drinking, and when one of these older ones came in, and he said he knew it was an old one because it had a long beard. It was wearing something that looked like white man's overalls. But just a tiny one. And he saw this man and this little young Memegwesu sitting at the table drinking tea. And he asked him, "Who is this?" "It's a human." "I thought I had told you never to show yourselves or expose yourselves to humans, because they will get frightened of you." Well, I was trying to make a deal with him to get this white wolf hide. Well, what kind of a deal were you going to make him? And the old one asked him. "Oh, I was going to challenge him to a contest, a wrestling contest. And whoever wins the wrestling match can have that wolf hide." And that man, he looked at that little one and he thought, okay, we'll get this over with. And they stepped outside and he got big again. There's a little one standing at his feet. And that little one said, "Are you ready?" And, "Oh, yeah." And that little one came rushing at him and grabbed him by the legs, both legs, and then began to toss him and fling him about all over the sandhills. And he said, "No, no, 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 that's not fair. You tripped me. That's not wrestling. You're tripping me. Let's start again." Again, that little one rushed at him and grabbed him by the legs and again flung him all over. And wouldn't quit until that man said, "Okay, okay, you win. You can have this white wolf hide. But first I'll take it home," he said, "and I'll skin the hide. I'll skin the wolf and I'll fix the hide so it's nice. And then I'll come back and leave it by this place where I met you. Leave it for you." And that little one said, "In exchange for that," he said, "you have made me very thankful. And because of the gift that you are giving me, I am going to give you a gift. In 4 days' time, when you get back, there is going to be a man coming to your place, and he'll have a horse that he's leading. And on that horse will be sitting a little girl who is very sick. He has taken her to see many different medicine people, and none of them have been able to help her. But he reached over and he picked up a bundle of medicines, a little packet of medicine, and he said, 'Here, I'm going to gift you with this. When that man comes to your place and he offers you tobacco in payment and asks if you can help his daughter, accept that tobacco and accept that payment. And brew up this medicine and give it to that girl to drink. And you can do it 4 times. Tapachewasa, reboil it. On the 4th pot, that girl will be cured." And that's what that man went home. And a few days after that, this man arrived leading a horse and a very sick girl on that horse. And he said he was just on his way home, and that he had been out going to see medicine people trying to find a cure for whatever it was sickness that his daughter had. And he had seen quite a few people, but no one could help her, he said. So I was just on my way home and I saw your place. I thought I would stop and have a rest. But I've been on this journey looking for healing for my daughter, so I'm here. I'll ask you, can you help her? And we presented him with the tobacco and the shields and the payment. And that man took them. He said, yes. And he went inside and he retrieved that bag of medicine, that little pack of medicine that little Memegweso had given him. And he boiled it up and took it out. And that girl was sitting by outside. And that first pot of medicine made a big difference. You could see that it really affected her. And the second pot, she just got stronger and healthier. And by the fourth pot, that girl was healed. She was no longer sick with whatever it is that she had arrived with. And so many times, we go to these little people with these requests. What do I need? Can you prepare that for me? And instruct me on how I am to use it, so that these people that come seeking healing can be truly healed. Memegwesiwak mamahtaosiwak. The little ones are sacred and holy. So today, it reminded me, I see these young birds and I think about little children and I think about all our children. And the dreams that came last night, and then Walter coming over and saying, what are you up to? What are you doing? I've been having these dreams, he said. They're connected to the other world, he said to me. Because one of the people I saw in that dream was a person who has passed on. But both you and I knew her. Yeah. And she came while I was dreaming about you. And in that dream, he said, I saw this being standing in front or beside you, and it had wings. Was it an angel? He said to me. And for me, it was like a fairy, something from the forest that has wings, but that loves greenery and shrubbery, you see. That's where she's most comfortable. And so I thought of that, and when I was coming, I was smoking and thanking all of these spirits and thinking that today might be a time to begin to talk about the things that will awaken the dreams of young children. Validate their visions and the things they see, through stories that go beyond the boundaries, the walls that are being built by the adults, their parents, their teachers, the policemen, social workers, that all try to restrict what they think. But give them the freedom to imagine and to understand that these things you're seeing, these things you are experiencing, are remembering and are dreaming about, they're real. And it's like, when these priests came, they talk about, this, the father of everything, and how, their religion is connected to that. And you Indians are pretty silly, believing in things like the sun and the moon and the earth. Well, look around you. Those are all real. The sun is real. The moon is real. The earth is real, And you talk about something, and can you see it? Can you feel it? Or is this just a story you're telling us, because you want You want to gain something out of this for yourself. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to continuing these conversations. Thank you to Mr. Fine for his time and stories. Special thanks to the Lloydminster Public School Division Prairie Thunder Boys Drum Group for providing the music for our podcast. We also want to acknowledge Lakeland College for the use of space and equipment, as well as TELUS STORYHIVE for their support.